Welcome to Schools of Thought with Bill Cirone. In the spirit of continuing education, Schools of Thought aims to present people and ideas that will be provocative and interesting to members of our community. And now for the host of our show, County Superintendent Bill Cirone.
I'm Bill Cirone, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools, and I'm pleased to host Schools of Thought for our community. I'm delighted to introduce my guest today, Kate Carter, who's founder and president of LifeChronicles. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you, Bill.
Kate, we want to talk today at length about both LifeChronicles and LifeSpace because they're both such important and inspirational programs, and I know one springs from the other. So let's start with LifeChronicles. Why don't you tell us how it began and what it does?
Well, LifeChronicles began actually 10 years ago. A dear friend of mine had been diagnosed with breast cancer, and her husband had passed away shortly before from Lou Gehrig's disease, and their children were 16, 13, and 10. And just as any person would do, I walked around for days when she'd been told to get her affairs in order, that she had a short time. I walked around for days saying, what can I do? And then one day I actually really heard those words, and I said, well, I can do video. What does that mean? And I called Terry and I said, Terry, let's sit you in front of a camera and you tell the children everything you'd like them to know for the rest of their lives. And then a couple of months later, I realized this was something we could do for a lot of people, and that's how we started.
And let's do a quick profile then. How many of these have you done to date?
We've done over 400.
Over 400. And what are the range of client situations? Who are the people that you tape?
Well, one of the interesting things is we started this as a terminally ill situation, which we still do a lot of, but what we quickly started doing was thinking, what are other ways we can serve people with this technology? And it became all about keeping people connected who couldn't be together for whatever reason. So it expanded into videos of young women who are pregnant with a child they're going to place for adoption. And she can go on camera and explain to the child, here's why I made this decision, here's how I feel about it, here's what happened. And then we started doing videos for young children in the hospital. Let's say they're having bone marrow transplant. It means 8 to 9 weeks or 6 to 9 weeks of isolation. Often these children only have one human being that can be in their presence at a time, which leaves them very isolated from everyone they know and love, which is hard on little kids. And so we started having families do videos with us of singing to the child, reading to her, whatever would be help her feel more connected while she's in that situation. And the families will tell you this becomes really amazing thing for the children. It makes them feel less isolated, helps their separation anxiety. We do videos of people who are just older people whose families want to preserve their stories. Because of that, we have an awful lot of World War II stories, so we started doing videos with the Pierre Gleison's Museum to preserve some of those stories, which are so important to our whole culture. And then we've done videos of young men who are going off to war now, and women as well, so that their children will remember them while they're gone. And if they unfortunately don't return, this will be the way that these children will know who that parent was for the rest of their lives. And we've just constantly been finding ways to continue to serve more people. It's
such a broad and diverse group that you're doing. How did they find you?
It's very different. One of the things we find most interesting is there are people who just go on the internet and they type in a few words and they find us. And those people usually call us in tears because they're so grateful that they found us. They're truly looking for this when they find us. Often, though, it comes from hospice. We work with both the hospices in Santa Barbara. Sometimes the Cancer Center calls us, the Alzheimer's Association. We've done an awful lot of Alzheimer's videos and ALS and Parkinson's. One of the exciting things about that work is it allows us to record people who are going to eventually lose the ability to speak. And this gives them an opportunity to say what they want to say and be heard after they lose that ability. So often it's agencies who work with these families that refer us.
And how much do you charge the clients for a tape?
We don't charge them. And you know, it's an interesting thing. People often say, well, why didn't you go for profit with this? Which, you know, we could. But, you know, I'd had my own personal health issues, very radical health issues years ago. And I knew from my own experience that when you're in that situation, not only are you trying to stay alive, your family is suffering, often financially, and even though I would have understood the importance of doing this if I had been approached to do it at that time, I had very young children. There was a possibility I wouldn't live to see them grow up. And they would, if they'd asked me to do this, I would have said, great. But if they told me it was going to cost me, you know, even $500 or less, we were in a financial situation where we were worried about keeping our house through all of this. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the reasons I feel so strongly that we don't want to burden these families with that issue. So we do this for free. We
How do you
let them
cover your
know.
costs?
Well, we let them know what it costs us. Unless often an agency will call us and say, this family is indigent, end of discussion. But if it's a family that is of means and is able, we let them know what it costs us and then ask them to donate any part of that or all of that if they can. If they can't, it's not an issue.
And so do you have some samples you can share with us? Let's roll some tape.
Okay.
What does Life Chronicles mean to the people we serve? It's not just pictures and sound. It's not just technology. It's hundreds of student volunteers who have given their time and talent to help people. People on a mission.
This is Taylor, Logan, and Ava. Ava's almost 2 now, right? And I just want to say to all of you guys how much I love you, each and every one of you, okay?
I love you too.
I love you too. And that no matter what happens and what goes on, I'll always love you, okay? And I'll always be with you, okay? And I just have to say that all the things that have happened, I think the 3 best things are right here. And I want you to know how much I love your mommy and how your mommy made me such a good person. Whenever you need to know what a family is, you just ask mommy, because she certainly knows. You have such a good mommy and she loves you guys very much. And I love her.
To share their wisdom.
Yeah, I'd like to say that all the material things and the toys, it's wonderful to have all these toys and we like to have them, but don't let them take over your lives. You know, we get so involved in the next promotion and the next achievement, and take time to sit back, to enjoy the moment, to enjoy the journey.
To enjoy the journey. Look at the roses, smell the roses.
Right. And if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. So go beyond that. Okay?
Go beyond that, okay.
Yeah.
I love you, Mom.
I'll just make it short and say I love you all and love your children and love my family, big and small. I'm grateful for all the friends I have, and the friends I had years ago I still have, and it's wonderful. Out of all bad comes a lot of good, I think. So it's been a wonderful life, and I'm grateful to the Lord for all His blessings. You know, I thought, am I doing this and not sharing this with my children that I'm going to do this? And they said, oh, Mom, please, please. And they were delighted. There were no tears. They were delighted that the grandchildren and they would have it to look at in the years to come, and their grandchildren will see it.
That's what Life Chronicles means to the people we serve.
Kate, you also work with a great number of student interns. What role do they play?
Well, you know, when we started Life Chronicles, that was not in our initial plans, but what happened was very early on, the messages in the videos were very profound and very positive. And we all just looked at each other, this wonderful group of people that helped me start Life Chronicles, and we said, you know what, young people would be greatly impacted by this. And so we thought a big part of our program would be training in the technology, but what became very clear very early was that the kids who were coming to us either were taking it in school or had taught it to themselves because this was their interest, you know, this kind of their hobby. And we had to do very little training. Not that we don't do training. The training that we do ends up being mostly sensitivity training. Our work's a little bit different from mainstream technology. We have to think in terms of who's watching this and how it will impact them. Like when we do a photo montage like we did the other day, we will generally keep our pictures on there much longer than most people would do in the business, but that's because these pictures, every one of them, is meaningful to these people, and we want them to be able to linger. So we do that kind of training. So most of the students who come are from high schools and colleges. We work with almost all of the schools in this area, and we also have a Yale University group that started after they saw us on CBS Evening News. But these students come to us. Some of them need to complete community service. Others come to us just because they're interested in the work. Certainly the college students don't have to come to us, but they do.
Well, what are the reactions of the students? I know you've interviewed some of them. Can you paraphrase some of their statements?
Well, what's interesting is, you know, a lot of times, especially teenagers, they're not the most verbal people you'll work with. And some of the kids who've actually worked with us, their parents have told us they hardly speak to them, but this work has drawn them out. They'll come out of their rooms after they've been editing and say, wait till I tell you about this video I worked on today. And what I find interesting, Bill, about young people is that many adults have said to us over these last 10 years, oh, your work, you must cry every day. It must be terribly depressing and sad. And it's really nothing like that. It's very empowering, it's very uplifting, and the messages in them are so powerful. And our young people never hesitate. We've never had the young people. I think they're actually hungry for reality. And I mean the real reality, not what they see on television, which is scripted and often manipulated and staged. The kids understand that this is real life, and they're very curious and want to know about it.
And that really is a great segue to LifeSpace. It's such a wonderful, valuable, amazing extension of Life Chronicles. Why don't you share with us a little with our audience about LifeSpace, how it came about, what it is, what it does?
Well, it was an interesting way that it came about, and it was like a convergence of things came together at just the right time. Last fall, we were asked to videotape Father Virgil Cardano, who's pretty much an icon in this town, whether you're Catholic or not. And we were asked to videotape him. He's 89 years old now. And we finished the taping. He said, Katie, what are we going to do with this? And I remember thinking, well, you know, normally I know the answer to that, but this situation's a little different. He's a man who's a priest, and he has nieces and nephews, but no immediate family. And the other part was, it was an amazing experience to be with this man. I was very moved by him, and he had such amazing, profound things to say. So when he said, what are we going to do with this, I thought, we need to do something important with this, and what would that be? And it took some time to think about it. And he also said, after we watched the raw footage together, you know, Katie, I don't think young people are hearing about this kind of thing anywhere. And I almost laughed, because for 10 years we've been saying the students that work with us have experiences that most young people, they hear things that most young people don't hear about anywhere. And so that led to another line of thinking about what can we do with this. So at the beginning of the year, we got together 14 people, teachers, parents, students, and some of our board members, and said, we need to take the work of Life Chronicles to young people everywhere. The best way would be through the schools. How can we do that? And I will tell you that the two teachers who came were remarkable teachers who've worked with Life Chronicles for a very long time. They've been referring students to us for a long time. They are teachers who understand the value of not only the hands-on experience of the video work, but the life experience that they gain by working with us. So Trish McHale at Laguna was the one that said, after a little bit of discussion about how can we do this, we said, you know, we need to go where the young people are. And she said, the young people are on the internet, even more than television and film now. And when you think about MySpace and YouTube and the others, this is where they're actually, this is more their television than television anymore. And she said, we need to do an interactive website called LifeSpace. She actually came up with the name, which is perfect for us. We'll categorize all these over 400 videos, which that number will grow. We'll form them into clips, categorized by topics. Topics like overcoming adversity, topics like end-of-life issues, World War II experiences, the number of topics. We sat with Father Virgil's video after we taped him and went, there's a topic, there's a topic. I mean, he talks about selflessness, talks about service, tells his own experience of being a young boy and going to the seminary for the first time. Really strong experiences that young people don't hear about this anywhere. And I'll give you one of my favorite examples. We taped an 89-year-old man whose wife had passed away, and they'd been married for many, many years, over 60 years. They met when she was 13 and he was 16. He says, you know, back in those days, we wouldn't think of having premarital sex. That was a line you didn't cross. But there was a lot of necking going on. Well, I laughed because I looked at the 4 students we were working with that day, and I thought, they don't know what necking is. And I don't know what their word for it is either, I'm sure. But then I realized, not only don't they know what necking is, no premarital sex is not a message that, and I'm not even saying that they have to believe in that, but to think about the idea of how things have changed. Is it better? Is it worse? And our goal with LifeSpace is not to tell young people what to think. It's to encourage them to think. Just think about what you're hearing. And does it apply to your life? Can it improve your life to look at that? So that it's, I love the name of this show, Schools of Thought. Our people are not even lecturing in these videos anyway. They're just telling their stories. But in those stories are priceless things for young people to think about.
So important and valuable, you know, and it strikes me that the messages that come out of the categories, as you were describing them, are really the polar opposite of what kids pick up through the mass media, whether it be TV, the internet, song, video, whatever.
Absolutely. And this is what the teachers are concerned about. This is what parents are concerned about. And recently I learned, Bill, that this is what young people are concerned about as well. I've had discussions with some of our student volunteers about our plans for LifeSpace, and every one of them will say to me in the conversation, you know, we were just talking about that with our friends the other day, about the really bad stuff that we're being exposed to and the really terrible role models out there, and that we don't get to see much else. So they're concerned about it too.
And, you know, as I listen to you, it seems to me that there's also some implications for researchers.
Oh, absolutely. A couple of years ago, I was invited to be an adjunct advisor to the neuroscience department at UCSB based on our work with Alzheimer's. And I had a couple of the scientists come to our office and see what we do, and they just were amazed. They were so excited by this huge archive we have, because they said, Katie, this is an archive of data that crosses almost all the demographics, you know, every age group, many different situations. And researchers over the years will clamor for that kind of data about us. But I told students, and students, we've talked about it a lot, you know, think about 100, 200 years from now. Our intention with Life Chronicles is to archive all of this forever, to keep changing, you know, from tape to DVD and whatever else the next technology will be, so that years and years from now people will be able to look back at our culture and know what we cared about, who we were, what kind of people we were.
You know, you're with the teaching of values, of thinking skills, the wisdom of the elders. You had also mentioned that many teachers are been involved. What is their reaction?
Well, I've gotten a couple of great emails since we started LifeSpace. But one of my favorite stories is last November I was in Virginia, and we have a school back there. It's a technology school, a high school, and it's a fantastic school. And they have a teacher there who has been referring his students to do videos with us back there when we get requests on the East Coast. And they work with our East Coast group that basically does the interviewing, and then these students do the technology. And they've done about 4 videos with us already. And they asked me to come and speak to the students, and I did. And I thought I'd done a pretty good job of covering everything. And then the teacher stood up there, and I was almost moved to tears, because this was a teacher who is such a good teacher that he could see beyond the technology part. And he said, I want you all to know that when you work with Life Chronicles videos, you're going to come back and you're going to look at everything differently. You're going to look at your own life differently. You're going to look at your parents differently. And you're going to look at the flowers differently, because what you're going to experience is going to make you really look at everything.
And how about a website? Do you have a website?
We have a website that's just been revised, and it's absolutely incredible. It's lifechronicles.org, and we now have more video than we've ever had, and it was put together by some incredibly talented people on the East Coast who did it for free for us. And so we have a very, very cool website now that has lots of video, and I would encourage people to spend the time, because lots of testimonials.
And if people wanted to learn more or support the program, they could go to the website. What else can they do?
They can call us at 966-3411. They can email us at lifechronicles@gmail.com. And we have great volunteers besides the students working with us in Santa Barbara. We wouldn't be here without those volunteers.
So you're looking for volunteers?
Always.
Okay, Kate, you know, I want to take just a little bit of time, because our viewers really like this. When there's a guest that really has a inspiring story, they're very interested in the, in effect, the personal profile, the path that that person took to their current career. So I just want to take a few minutes to go back in time and do a very quick personal profile. Where did you go to school? Where were you from?
Well, I was born in San Antonio, Texas. I lived in Chicago from the time I was 3 till I was 13, which was a great school system, by the way. And then I came to California, and I grew up in the San Fernando Valley before there were Valley Girls.
Before the Valley Girls, okay. And I understand in high school you held several positions that were kind of at opposite ends.
Right. I was a cheerleader, but I was also the vice president of my senior class, and was voted most popular, which my kids relentlessly tease me about. But I loved people. I always have, and that's really why that happened.
That personality certainly comes through. And you started Northridge, but couldn't finish. What happened?
I was at Cal State Northridge in communications, of course, which is a great communications school, by the way. And I didn't get to be there very long. I had put my ex-husband through UCSB, and when it was my turn to go to college, unfortunately, he decided after I'd been in there for a while that he needed me to support him so that he could get a better job. And it was my choice, and I had friends highly encouraging me not to make that decision, but I dropped out. And while I wish I had finished, I've had incredible life experiences that really, when you look back at your life, they all connect and show you how you got to where you are. So
what was your first job then?
My first job was my first big job was an executive assistant to a president of a company, and I was only 28. And an amazing man who's still one of our best supporters of Life Chronicles, Keith Berry. Okay. And he was just an incredible mentor, very great integrity, great work ethic, but also gave me a lot of responsibility at a relatively young age, which made me pretty much feel like I could handle just about anything.
And I was going to ask you, did you have mentors along the way? I would assume he was one of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I had a drama teacher in high school who was actually Kevin Spacey's drama teacher as well, which is very exciting, who is still a good friend of mine, loves what we're doing with Life Chronicles. He actually was the first person who picked me to student direct the play 1984, which was not my favorite choice, but the experience was incredible, and I realized when I look back, I was a performer always before that and had won at the UCLA Shakespeare Festival and others, but I was surprised when he picked me to do that, and I guess he must have seen something in me that I wasn't aware of, and I fell in love with production, and I'm sure that has a large part to do with why I love what we do now.
And you also worked at home for a while while you had 3 kids?
Right. I had, when my job at Merrill Lynch ended, when the company was making changes, had nothing to do with me. They didn't fire me, but the executive office was closing, and so I decided that I was never going to get a better job than that in Santa Barbara. So I started working for myself. I had a word processing business for years, which allowed me to work at home, and it was, I don't know I would recommend it to everyone. It's not easy to work at home when you have little kids, but it certainly served a purpose, and it was good for us.
Well, you know, when you had talked earlier about, at the very beginning, about the motivation and your friend who was dying, and that really changed your life path. You talked, I know when you talk to young people, when we've talked about this in the past, you talk to them about loving what they do. Right. Is it fair to say now that you love what you do? I
love what I do. And often I speak at schools, and I've had kids challenge me on why would you work for a nonprofit. But what I want kids to understand, and I don't think they get this in the media, especially if they're watching shows like, I don't know, I don't want to say, but shows where it makes it look like you walk out of college and become a CEO, you know. It's important for young people to understand that it's great to make a paycheck, but if you don't wake up loving what you do every day, it's not as good a life, and that's the best you can do, is find something that really inspires you. And what's the best part for you? I have to say, it sounds really strange. I'm sure there are people who will think it's awful, but I never feel more connected to the universe than when I'm talking to a terminally ill person. And also seniors. They're looking at their lives and they're thinking about what really matters, and they'll tell you what really matters. And if you can all connect to that every day and keep in mind what really matters in this world, life is just much more bright and powerful and interesting. And as we wind down, if you could send a brief message to young people today, what would it be? That we need to be doing what we love right now every day, and we need to think about other people. That's a biggie right there. I've raised 3 teenagers with my husband, and I remember being a teenager, you know, you get pretty self-involved. And if you're self-involved in your problems and you start helping someone else, it'll pull you out of your own stuff, and life will become much better for you. And what message would you send to teachers? I just love the teachers that I've been working with so far, and I love the fact that they care about these students enough, even though they are so packed, you know, trying to meet standards and all the testing and everything they have to do. It's the teachers that have said to us, we would love to find a way to be able to bring some values education to our students, and I love that these teachers care so much about their students.
And with all that you do, you're very intense, you've built an organization, it keeps growing, new dimensions. What do you do to relax?
Not much, but I actually read a lot, and I love books that, well, see, I'm living my dream. I work with people telling their life stories. Biographies and autobiographies have always been my favorite books, but I do like to read a lot, and usually what I'm reading are guidance on how to do things better in my life.
Well, Kate, we are unfortunately out of time. I could go on, and I just want to thank you for the inspirational work that you do with both the living and the dying, and clearly your caring, your vision, your passion. It all touches lives in so many ways and truly makes a difference. And I also appreciate your creativity and your ingenuity and the way you've found a way to bring young people into the process as well. So thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you very much.
I'm Bill Cirone, thanking you for joining us and signing off for this edition of Schools of Thought.